Hello again, I'm Paul Yakovich, Director of Facility Operations at Shell Point, for another operations update. This time I'd like to speak to you about pedestrian and vehicle safety. If you haven't noticed, this time of year it's season, both in Southwest Florida, but certainly here at Shell Point as well. That means our roadways, our walkways, our parking spaces are all maxed out, and sometimes our patience becomes maxed out because of it as well. It's in that regard I want to approach pedestrian safety and driving safety as well. Unfortunately, tempers sometimes run high when we're faced with a situation because of a slow driver or an erratic driver. And sometimes our emotions get involved and cloud our judgment, and that can lead to an unfortunate accident, injury to yourself, or perhaps injury to somebody else. So let's discuss some of the factors that we have to think about while we're driving and walking and enjoying ourselves here at Shell Point. Here at Shell Point, we have a term called peaceful lodging. And that sort of means that we all get together and live and work harmoniously here as neighbors. That's not a real bad philosophy to apply when you're out there in the roadway in the hustle and bustle of everyday traffic. First, let's consider the many ways that we get around, move around the several neighborhoods at Shell Points to our amenities and facilities that are spread out all across the property. We have walkers out there. We have some people with mobility limitations and wheelchairs and walkers. And we also have our fit and healthy runners that are using the pathways and the roadways. Most noticeably of the past several years, Shell Point here in particular, we've seen an increase in bicyclists. Out there, those healthy people out there on the bicyclists, and you've probably seen some trikes out there, some tricycles, some really fancy equipment with people on our our pathways and our roadways with these tricycles. Then of course we have golf carts, motorized scooters, we have the segways, hoverboards, don't forget the automobiles, electric cars and smart cars. Every facet of transportation that you can think of, all sharing a limited space here on Shell Point and a congested space out on Shell Point Boulevard and our pathways going to and from the property. All sharing that space at the same time. So how are we going to avoid conflict? First of all, and we can't forget, whether we're on Shell Point or not, there are local laws, local traffic laws, rules of the road that we have to obey. Stop at stop signs, yield, speed limits, etc., all those. Secondly, I want to apply that peaceful lodging aspect to the driving and moving around on Shell Point to promote safety and to avoid conflict. Just, that's common courtesy. And when in doubt, yield to the other individual. Whether in the right or wrong, it may avoid an accident. We've spoken about the local laws and rules of the road. Shell Point has some rules of the road as well. Let's keep in mind that the speed limit on all Shell Point roads is 15 miles an hour. That by design is slow enough to where it can provide any kind of reaction time that is needed as we go around our very confined areas here. Keeping in mind, we have the people walking, we have people on bikes, we have people in their golf carts, all sharing that same space. So 15 miles an hour is a good safe speed. And then when you're in a parking lot, our speed limit is reduced to 5 miles an hour to provide another safety buffer and just provide for more caution when we're in that confined space. Always keep in mind pedestrians have the right of way, and we have a lot of pedestrian traffic. Automobiles should always yield to pedestrians. Riding bikes on their segways, no matter what it may be, as they are more prone and to injury than you when you're protected by your car. Some other rules here with bicyclists. Yes, they can use our roadways and the pathways out on Shell Point Boulevard, but bicycles are prohibited from using the perimeter sidewalks and walkways, and they're not to be driven within the interior of the courts. Bicyclists also, they should remember to ride on the road, on the right side of the road with the flow of traffic, and they too must obey all stop signs and speed limit signs, I might add as well. Whether you're driving a bicycle or a tricycle or a Segway or a car, no, always yield the right of way. It's better to be safe than sorry. Let's talk a little bit about Shell Point Boulevard. Shell Point Boulevard is a highly used area between the island and to get off of Shell Point, but certainly between the island and all the other neighborhoods. First and foremost, Shell Point Boulevard does not belong to Shell Point. Shell Point Boulevard is a county road, and therefore it's open to use by the public. We have a lot of suggestions that come in about upkeep and things that we could do out on Shell Point Boulevard, but that's a county issue. Now, fortunately, Shell Point has a very good working relationship with the county, and when it comes to signage or road repair or whatever that may be, they're very accommodating in most cases to our requests for repair. Another thing that you want to keep in mind, those roads are regularly patrolled by our Lee County Sheriff's Office. So that means that if you're not abiding the speed limit, you may be getting a ticket. So be careful out there as always. An important point I'd like to make. Shell Point suggests residents and staff use the west side pathway to travel south towards the sales center and the springs, and the east side pathway to travel north towards Palm Acres and the island after exiting the Woodlands. And we always want to take care, you must take care whenever you're crossing Shell Point Boulevard at the Woodlands, at the Coastal Commons, and the Sales and Center Springs. Please exercise the same peaceful lodging, common courtesy philosophy when using the Shell Point Boulevard pathways. Golf carts must yield to pedestrians and bicyclists. Again, when in doubt, yield. Peaceful lodging, harmonious living, common courtesy, and safety are all key to the wonderful environment we enjoy at Shell Point, both at home and on the road. In closing, and I may want to date myself, but I know there are a lot of you out there that remember this. The old TV program, police program, Hill Street Blues, when the shift was just about to go out, be dismissed, the shift sergeant would tell his police officers before they left, be careful out there. And that's my message to you. Whether you're walking, riding your bicycle, whether you're in your golf cart or your automobile, please be careful out there. And have a Shell Point day.